The 1970s produced some of the greatest music ever recorded, and also some songs that got played so relentlessly or praised so loudly that the gap between reputation and reality became hard to ignore. This isn't about bad music. Most of these songs are genuinely good. It's about which ones have been built up beyond what they can deliver, and which 3 still hold up completely no matter how many times you've heard them. Here are 11 overrated 70s songs to skip, and 3 that are truly timeless. Number 11, Freebird by Lynyrd Skynyrd, 1973. Let's start with the one that audiences have been shouting at concert stages for 50 years, regardless of who is performing. Freebird was written by guitarist Alan Collins and vocalist Ronnie Van Zant and appeared on Lynyrd Skynyrd's debut album in 1973. It was released as a single in November 1974, peaked at number 19 on the Billboard Hot 100 in early 1975, and has been played live as the finale of every Skynyrd show since. Amazon.com music reviewer Laurie Fleming once called it the most requested song in the history of rock music, which is either a compliment or a warning, depending on how you feel about it. Here's the honest assessment. The first half of Freebird, the slow piano ballad, Billy Powell's graceful intro, Van Zant's voice over Gary Rossington's slide guitar, is genuinely lovely. It earns everything it gets. The extended guitar solo that follows, clocking in at over 4 minutes in the studio version and famously stretching beyond 14 minutes live, is technically impressive and was genuinely exciting the first dozen times you heard it. The problem is the concert culture that grew around it. Shouting "Freebird" became a joke at other people's concerts from the late 1970s onward, which effectively converted the song into a punchline while it was still alive. BBC Radio 2 called it a rock radio staple matched only by Stairway to Heaven, which is exactly the kind of comparison that explains why both songs now carry the baggage they do. The song is on the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame's 500 songs that shaped rock and roll. It belongs there, but it's also been done to death in a way that makes it almost impossible to hear fresh anymore. Number 10, More Than a Feeling by Boston, 1976. Boston's debut album arrived in 1976 with one of the most polished, carefully engineered rock sounds anyone had heard. Tom Scholz, the band's guitarist and primary creative force, had a master's degree from MIT and had spent years building and refining his own recording equipment in his basement. The album was recorded almost entirely by Scholz alone, with vocalist Brad Delp added after the instrumental tracks were complete. It debuted at number 7 on the Billboard 200 and eventually sold over 17 million copies in the United States alone, one of the best-selling debut albums in history. More Than a Feeling is the lead single and opening track, and it is immaculately constructed. The guitar tone, the melody, Brad Delp's voice, every element is precisely where it belongs. The problem is that immaculately constructed and genuinely moving are not the same thing. And over the years, the song's enormous radio presence has made it impossible to evaluate clearly. It has been played so often in so many contexts that its emotional impact has been smoothed flat by familiarity. Scholz himself has expressed frustration over the decades with how narrowly Boston is represented on radio. The band has many other excellent songs that almost no one hears because More Than a Feeling has consumed all available space. The song is not bad. It is a victim of its own ubiquity. Number 9, Smoke on the Water by Deep Purple, 1972. Smoke on the Water documents a real event. On December 4th, 1971, during a Frank Zappa and the Mothers of Invention concert at the Montreux Casino in Switzerland, a member of the audience fired a flare gun, which ignited the roof. The casino burned to the ground. Deep Purple was staying nearby and watched the fire from across Lake Geneva. Guitarist Ritchie Blackmore, bassist Roger Glover, and vocalist Ian Gillan wrote the song about what they witnessed.
We all came out to Montreux.
And it appeared on the 1972 album Machine Head. It reached number 4 on the Billboard Hot 100 when it was released as a single in 1973. The opening 4-note guitar riff is one of the first things millions of guitar students have ever learned. It is simple, heavy, and instantly identifiable, qualities that made it ideal for teaching beginners, and qualities that have meant it has been played incorrectly by beginning guitarists in music stores for 50 years without interruption. There is a term for this: guitar store syndrome. Smoke on the Water may be the single most significant example of a riff that entered public consciousness primarily as something played badly by someone who has owned a guitar for about 3 days. The song itself is solid, but its identity has been so thoroughly colonized by that riff, in that context, that it is genuinely difficult for many people to hear it as anything other than the first thing a teenager plays when nobody's watching. Number 8, Crocodile Rock by Elton John, 1972.
I remember when rock was young.
Elton John's run in the early 1970s was extraordinary by any measure. Your Song, Tiny Dancer, Rocket Man, Honky Cat, Crocodile Rock, Daniel, Saturday Night's All Right for Fighting, Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, all released between 1970 and 1973. That kind of sustained output is genuinely remarkable, and several of those songs are among the finest of the decade. Crocodile Rock is not among those several. It was released as a single in October 1972, reached number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 in February 1973, and became Elton John's first American number 1. It is an affectionate, nostalgic tribute to early rock and roll, built around a piano riff that borrows heavily from Pat Boone's Speedy Gonzales, 1962, and the Fly Me to the Moon chord progression, with Bernie Taupin's lyrics painted in the bright colors of early 1960s pop. The charm of Crocodile Rock was always its lightness. It was never pretending to be something important, but that lightness has not aged in the way that John and Taupin's more emotionally complex work has. It is the kind of song that was fun when it was new, pleasant when it comes on the radio unexpectedly, and slightly exhausting if you dwell on it. Given how much deeper Elton John's catalog runs, it feels like an odd representative to still be in heavy rotation. Number 7, We Will Rock You by Queen, 1977.
Buddy, you're a boy, make a big noise, playing in the street, gonna be...
We Will Rock You was written by Brian May in 1977, specifically as a song the audience could participate in. He wanted something the crowd could clap and stomp along to without needing to know any lyrics in advance. It appeared on the album News of the World in October 1977, and became one of the most recognizable pieces of music in sports history.
We will rock you.
It is played at stadiums and arenas before, during, and after events on every inhabited continent. It is a perfect piece of crowd mechanics. As a song, it is extremely thin. It is 2 chords, a stomp-stomp-clap rhythm pattern, and 2 verses. Brian May has never claimed otherwise. Its power is entirely in the room it's played in and the size of the crowd doing the stomping. Divorced from that context, sitting through it on radio or on a playlist, it is about 90 seconds of content that has been given a cultural significance entirely out of proportion to its musical substance.
We will rock you.
Queen's catalog from the 1970s includes Bohemian Rhapsody, Somebody to Love, Don't Stop Me Now, Killer Queen, and Innuendo, songs of genuine depth and extraordinary construction. We Will Rock You is the one that gets played. It doesn't represent the band. It represents the one aspect of the band that needed no particular talent to enjoy. Number 6, Rock and Roll All Night by Kiss, 1975.
You show us everything you've got.
Kiss recorded Rock and Roll All Night in 1975 on the album Dressed to Kill, and it went more or less unnoticed. The studio version stalled commercially when a live version was recorded for the album Alive. Later that year, and released as a single, it reached number 12 on the Billboard Hot 100 and became the band's breakthrough hit. The song had been written under pressure. Paul Stanley and Gene Simmons composed it quickly while on tour to support their struggling third album.
You keep on shouting, you keep on shouting.
And Stanley has described it as a deliberate attempt to write an anthem that would work in an arena. It succeeded on exactly those terms. Rock and Roll All Night is a fine arena anthem. The crowd call and response, the simplicity of the message, the energy Kiss brought to it in concert, all of that worked perfectly for what the song was designed to do. The problem is that the song's simplicity is so complete that it has no dimension beyond the moment of its performance. It exists to be shouted at volume with other people.
Wanna rock and roll all night.
Without that context, the song evaporates. For a band with the theatrical ambition and visual creativity of Kiss, it is a surprisingly thin piece of music to be the defining single. Grunge.com surveyed 600 readers on the most overrated rock song of the 1970s, and Rock and Roll All Night came in at number 1 with 22.17% of the vote.
Wanna rock and roll all night.
Number 5, Baker Street by Jerry Rafferty, 1978.
Light in your head and dead on your feet well enough.
Baker Street is the saxophone. That saxophone riff, written and performed by Raphael Ravenscroft, is one of the most immediately recognizable instrumental passages in 1970s pop music, and it is the reason the song has been in rotation on soft rock and adult contemporary radio for nearly 50 years. Jerry Rafferty wrote and recorded the song for his 1978 album City to City, and it reached number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100 in the United States and number 3 in the United Kingdom.
You're trying now.
The saxophone riff, which repeats throughout the song, is legitimate. The rest of the song, Rafferty's reflective verses about a man drifting through London without direction, the slightly meandering structure, the extended runtime, is competent soft rock that would not be remembered at all without the horn. Ravenscroft was not credited on the original single release, an oversight that he found frustrating given that his performance was the song's defining element. He reportedly received a flat session fee of approximately £27 for playing what became one of the most famous saxophone parts in pop history. He received no royalties. Baker Street is a song that gets remembered for a riff that plays maybe 3 times in the recording. What surrounds the riff is pleasant and forgettable. Ravenscroft reportedly used the session fee, approximately £27, to buy a bicycle. The saxophone riff went on to earn millions. He received none of it. That combination is, more or less, the definition of overrated.
He's rolling, he's the rolling stone.
Number 4, Life in the Fast Lane by Eagles, 1977. The Eagles are on this list precisely once, and it is not Hotel California or Desperado. Life in the Fast Lane was released as a single in May 1977 from the Hotel California album and peaked at number 11 on the Billboard Hot 100. It is a competent piece of hard-edged rock built around a riff that Joe Walsh developed, and that became the song's main guitar hook.
She held him up and he held up for ransom.
Don Henley and Glenn Frey wrote the lyrics about the excess and hollowness of the fast Los Angeles lifestyle. Territory the Eagles covered more memorably elsewhere on the same album and on previous records. The problem with Life in the Fast Lane is that it is the Eagles at their most obvious. The theme, the production, the arrangement, all of it telegraphs itself completely in the first 30 seconds, and the remaining 3.5 minutes deliver exactly what was promised without surprise. Placed on the same album as Hotel California, New Kid in Town, and Wasted Time, it functions as the one moment on the record where the band sounds like they're going through the motions of being the Eagles rather than actually being them. Radio has treated it as an equal to the rest of the album. It isn't. Number 3, Overrated, Take It Easy by Eagles, 1972.
Well, I'm running down the road trying to loosen my load.
This requires a clarification. Take It Easy is a historically significant song. It was the Eagles' debut single in May 1972, reaching number 12 on the Billboard Hot 100, and it established everything the band would build on for the next decade. Jackson Browne wrote the majority of the song. Glenn Frey contributed lyrics for the second verse after Browne found himself stuck.
Take it easy.
The opening guitar figure is one of the cleaner pieces of country rock writing of the era, and the harmonies are exactly right. But 50 years of being treated as the quintessential Eagles song, the opener to the retrospectives, the first track played on any Eagles deep dive, the unofficial anthem of laid-back California rock, has inflated its reputation beyond what the song itself contains.
Take it easy.
It is a very good debut single from a band that went on to write much better songs. Desperado, Best of My Love, The Long Run, Lion Eyes. Any of those are more fully realized than Take It Easy. Its place in the canon is historical rather than artistic, which is fine. History matters, but it's been awarded artistic greatness it doesn't quite own.
Wheels drive you crazy.
Number 2, Overrated, You're So Vain by Carly Simon, 1972.
You're so vain.
You're So Vain was released in November 1972 and reached number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 in January 1973, staying there for 3 weeks. It is one of the most famous songs of the decade, and the question of who it was written about, a debate Carly Simon fed deliberately for decades before eventually confirming that the second verse refers to Warren Beatty,
This song is about you. You're so vain.
became one of pop culture's longest-running parlor games. The song is well constructed, and Carly Simon's performance is sharp and controlled. But the decades of attention to the "who is it about" question have obscured the fact that the song's musical content is considerably less interesting than the mystery surrounding it. The melody is largely static across the verses, the arrangement is polished but anonymous, and the chorus depends heavily on the novelty of its lyrical conceit.
You think this song is about you, don't you?
When the mystery is set aside, when you simply listen to the song as music, it sounds like a competent, well-produced early 70s soft rock recording, which is not the same thing as a masterpiece. It was Mick Jagger, incidentally, who sang the backing vocals on the recording. He was not credited. the song's reputation has always been more about the story than the music. Number 1, Overrated, Stairway to Heaven by Led Zeppelin, 1971. Stairway to Heaven is probably the song that most people reading this will push back on, and that reaction is itself part of the point. The song appeared on Led Zeppelin 4 in November 1971, was never released as an American single during the band's active years, and became anyway the most requested song in American rock radio history, played over 2.8 million times in the 3 decades following its release, according to BMI.
Sometimes words have to mean.
Robert Plant once called it a wedding song, which was not a compliment. The first half of Stairway to Heaven, the descending acoustic guitar figure, the recorders, the gradual building of the arrangement, is genuinely beautiful. The craftsmanship in that section is real. The second half, where the song shifts to a full electric band and Page's guitar solo, is also real and also deserved its reputation at the time. But here is the uncomfortable truth that the song's sacred status has made difficult to say. The transition between those two halves and the mystical folk poetry of the lyrics have been treated as profound in a way that requires a certain amount of youthful credulity to sustain.
And my spirit is crying for leave.
Generations of rock fans encountered this song at an age when its atmosphere of mystery and grandeur felt profound. Revisiting it, without that context, the song is a very good 8-minute rock piece that accumulated a mythology significantly larger than its actual content. It is the most overplayed, most imitated, and most parodied song of its era for reasons that have more to do with its position in rock culture than with what it actually is. The Aeolian cadence, the layers, the Jimmy Page guitar solo, technically accomplished. The reputation built on something else.
The stairway to
The truly timeless 3. Timeless pick 1, Rocket Man, I Think It's Gonna Be a Long, Long Time by Elton John, 1972.
and I'm gonna be high.
Rocket Man was written by Elton John and Bernie Taupin and released as a single in April 1972. It reached number 6 on the Billboard Hot 100 and number 2 in the United Kingdom. It was recorded at Trident Studios in London in January 1972 with producer Gus Dudgeon and arranger Paul Buckmaster, who had also worked on Your Song and Tiny Dancer. Taupin wrote the lyrics after reading a Ray Bradbury short story about an astronaut who finds himself more comfortable in space than at home, and the result is one of the strangest and most precise emotional portraits in 1970s pop music.
And I think it's gonna be a long, long time to touch.
The song is about isolation and disconnection, specifically the feeling of being professionally successful in a way that removes you from ordinary life, from family, from the things that give existence its texture. The astronaut is lonely in space. He is also, the song quietly suggests, lonely everywhere. Elton John's piano and vocal on the recording are understated in a way that amplifies rather than diminishes the emotion. There is no showmanship in the performance. He stays close to the lyric and lets it carry the weight. Paul Buckmaster's string and woodwind arrangement provides exactly the sensation of drifting space. The 4-note descending piano phrase that ends each chorus has a finality that never quite resolves.
I'm not the man they think I am at home. Oh, no, no.
Rocket Man does not require the listener to be in any particular place in life to work. It works at 22, and it works at 65. And it works for entirely different reasons each time. That is not something most songs can do. In 2021, Rocket Man was inducted into the Grammy Hall of Fame. It appeared in the film Rocket Man in 2019, was referenced in David Bowie's Ziggy Stardust, and has been cited by astronauts as one of the songs they carry into space. The song that felt like science fiction in 1972 turned out to be about something much closer to home. Timeless. Pick 2, The Long and Winding Road by The Beatles, 1970.
I've seen that road before.
A brief note on eligibility. The Long and Winding Road was released in May 1970, making it technically a 1970s song by single release, though it was recorded in January 1969. It appeared on Let It Be, released in May 1970. It became the Beatles' last #1 on the Billboard Hot 100, spending 2 weeks at the top.
It always leads me.
Paul McCartney wrote it during the tense period surrounding the Let It Be sessions in early 1969, when the Beatles were clearly in the final phase of their existence as a band. He has said he had the idea after dreaming about his mother, who died when he was 14. The song captures a very specific feeling, the exhaustion and longing that comes at the end of something that mattered, without sentimentalizing it. The Phil Spector orchestral overdub, added in 1970 without McCartney's consent, and which McCartney publicly objected to for years, thickens the song in ways some listeners find excessive.
Lead me to your door.
The 2003 Let It Be naked release stripped those overdubs, returning the recording closer to what McCartney heard in the original sessions. Both versions exist. The stripped version makes the longing in the piano and vocal more naked and more direct. The song never shows its age because the feeling it captures, the end of something irreplaceable, the road that keeps calling, does not belong to any particular decade.
Let the rain.
Timeless Pick 3, Landslide by Fleetwood Mac, 1975.
I climbed a mountain and I turned around.
Stevie Nicks wrote Landslide in 1973 in Aspen, Colorado, during a moment when she was unsure whether to continue pursuing music or return to college. She was 25 years old. The partnership with Lindsey Buckingham was under strain, and the future felt genuinely uncertain. She and Buckingham had joined Fleetwood Mac just months earlier in late 1974. Landslide appeared on the Fleetwood Mac album of 1975.
And I saw my reflection in the snow.
The song was not released as a single at the time. It accumulated its following over years, passed between listeners who found it and passed it on, which is perhaps why it has always felt like something discovered rather than marketed. Lindsey Buckingham's acoustic guitar on the recording is finger-picked with a delicacy that gives Nicks's voice exactly the space it needs.
Covered hills till the landslide.
Landslide has been covered hundreds of times. The Smashing Pumpkins released a version in 1994 that introduced it to a generation who were not yet born when Nicks wrote it. She has sung it at every stage of her career. At 25, thinking about what comes next. At 70, looking back at what came and went. And the song accommodates both readings without strain.
Of my life.
What makes Landslide truly timeless is that it is about the one experience no one escapes. Time moves, people change, what was solid shifts. Every decade of a life provides a different way into the song, and the song accepts all of them.
On a landslide, bring it.
11 songs that have been played or praised past the point of honest appreciation, and 3 that stand completely on their own, 50 years later, with nothing to apologize for. The 1970s were big enough to hold all of it. The music that mattered then still matters now, and the music that was always a little more reputation than substance tends, eventually, to sort itself out, if this brought back some memories, or started some arguments. Like the video and subscribe. There's more where this came from.